Juniper. Axel's confidence was unmistakable as our lips connected, his tongue meeting mine with purpose. His hands traced a deliberate path down my spine, fingers skimming my rib cage before firmly grasping my backside. The unexpected squeeze made me lose balance with a startled sound. In one fluid motion, he caught my waist and flipped our positions. Beneath me, snacks crunched and rustled, but such discomfort registered as irrelevant. My fingers twisted into Axel's hair, craving the return of his mouth against mine. He positioned his knee between my thighs, applying pressure that drew an involuntary sound from my throat. His slight adjustment crushed another snack package beneath us. With a frustrated growl, Axel broke away abruptly. Standing in one swift movement, he lifted me into his arms and deposited me onto the other mattress. His towel dropped to the floor as he mounted the bed, securing my wrists above my head with a single hand. The realization hit me suddenly. We hadn't discussed protection. More alarming was my complete willingness to feel him finish inside me, a thought that yanked me sharply back to reality. "Stay there," Axel murmured, pressing a tender kiss to my lips before disappearing into the bathroom. He returned with a damp washcloth, methodically cleaning my stomach with gentle motions, each stroke followed by a soft press of his lips against my skin. After quickly attending to himself, Axel pulled back the bed covers and slipped beneath them. He drew me against his chest, fingers threading through my hair with surprising tenderness. The contrast between this gentle affection and his fierce passion minutes before was striking. The soft kiss he placed on my forehead carried an emotion I wasn't prepared to analyze. I traced lazy patterns on his chest while resting my head against him, his heartbeat a steady rhythm in my ear. Though physically drained, my mind raced with unrelenting thoughts. There was an unexpected quality to how Axel held me. Our first encounters had painted him as abrasive and indifferent, a man who appeared to care for nothing and no one. Yet those who truly knew Axel understood this facade concealed a profound capacity for devotion to those he valued. Unlike others, he never forced his way into my life. There was no desperate pursuit for reciprocated feelings. Instead, Axel observed from a distance, patient and watchful, materializing precisely when I needed support, though I hadn't realized it was him I'd been waiting for. The stark contrast between the twins was undeniable. Where Asher had smothered me with desperate affection, prioritizing his happiness above my own, Axel offered something entirely different. I cared for Asher, perhaps even loved him in a way, but his need had been overwhelming. "Are you asleep?" I asked softly into the darkness. Axel's steady breathing continued as his hand rested lightly against my skin. Came his muffled response. I tilted my head to check his face. His eyes remained closed. That doesn't sound convincing. I kept my voice low, not wanting to disturb him if he truly was drifting off, though my mind buzzed with unspoken thoughts I longed to share. One of Axel's eyes opened slightly. "I'm completely awake." "Liar," I said with a small headshake. "Go back to sleep." Both eyes snapped open this time as he repositioned himself, sitting up and pulling me onto his lap in one fluid motion. "Not happening. You're obviously wide awake and need to talk." So I pressed my fingers against his chest, my lips tightening. My thoughts won't settle down. "What's running through your mind?" He tapped his fingers gently against my head. I was wondering, what if James was never actually my mate? The question seemed to fill the room as Axel bit his lower lip thoughtfully. "I don't have an answer. There's really no way to be certain. Maybe if your memories of him were intact, you'd have more clarity." "Perhaps." I drew a deep breath, pushing myself up from Axel's chest to sit straight, wanting a clearer view of his face. "But I've been contemplating something. What if the mate bond isn't that instantaneous connection everyone mythologizes? How many genuine true mates do you personally know?" His telling silence confirmed my suspicion. What if true mates function differently? Maybe through time, the concept evolved. Perhaps it's actually a connection that develops gradually into something unbreakable. "That could be true, yet every story I've encountered describes an immediate bond," Axel replied. "What prompted these thoughts?" "You did." I hesitated, weighing my next words carefully. "And Asher, and Ethan, since first meeting each of you, I've felt an inexplicable pull toward all three, and it seems unlikely that our shared childhood alone explains it. Though that might be the reason. But with you specifically, the harder I tried to distance myself, the stronger my desire grew. You're convinced we can't be mates because you believe James was mine, but what if that's incorrect? Maybe we are actually fated for each other. Axel's expression contorted as I spoke. When I finished, I realized how irrational I must sound to him. I had recently ended things with his brother, quickly found my way into his bed, and now was theorizing about us being mates despite lacking the traditional signs. I stepped back, feeling the urge to flee. A wave of embarrassment washed over me for exposing my thoughts so openly. I shouldn't have rambled like that. I'm probably just manufacturing connections where none exist to make sense of this confusion. Axel's fingers circled my wrist firmly as he drew me back to him. You're not escaping that easily. I meant what I said. Now that I have you, I'm not letting go. And don't apologize for speaking your truth. I've questioned if we might be mates too, but dismissed it as wishful thinking, convinced I was inventing a connection because I wanted you so desperately. His lips brushed against my hair as he inhaled deeply. Neither of us is delusional. Ethan has developed a theory, unproven but compelling. He believes when James died, your mate bond sought new connections. Since Asher, Ethan, and I were closest to you during that vulnerable time, the bond fragmented, creating partial connections with each of us. Juniper, can that really happen? I questioned, my pulse quickening as I processed Axel's words. His explanation aligned with several aspects of my situation, but the implication that I might be bonded to 3 different werewolves left me deeply troubled for numerous reasons. Axel gave a defeated shrug. I don't have definitive answers. There might be someone with that knowledge somewhere, but I wouldn't know where to begin looking. If what you're saying is true, then I've formed partial bonds with you, Asher, and Ethan. What exactly does that mean for me? My chest tightened with anxiety at this possibility. The thought of any connection to Asher repulsed me now, and if I had bonds with both Ethan and Axel, perhaps what I felt for Axel wasn't as unique as I'd believed, a terrifying notion. I couldn't bear losing him as I had Asher. It means you have options, Axel replied with a hollow laugh that never reached his eyes. What if I don't want options? I countered. The idea of being pulled between multiple connections was overwhelming. I had no desire to untangle emotions stemming from potential bonds with 3 brothers. You might not have control over this situation, but if everything we suspect is true, I'm going to fight for you this time. I can't just stand on the sidelines anymore after experiencing what we could become together. Axel shifted his position and gently tilted my chin upward, forcing our eyes to meet. But remember this. Your happiness matters most to me. If you ultimately decide your joy lies elsewhere, I'll never make you feel guilty about that decision. Is that clear? I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my chest. In Axel's embrace, I couldn't imagine choosing anyone else. Yet I wondered if that feeling would remain constant if I were alone with Ethan, with Axel nowhere around. Ethan. Asher hadn't budged from my couch all day, and I was torn about how to proceed. His treatment of Juniper made me want to throw him out and cut ties completely. Yet he was still my brother, and despite his inexcusable behavior, I recognized that the side of Asher that Juniper saw wasn't his typical self. Moping around won't solve anything, I remarked, settling into the armchair with a book in hand. The weekend afforded me some flexibility with my time, though numerous tasks still demanded my attention. Principal Clandestine had already reached out about my brother's alleged fight at the dance. Given the principal's obvious dislike of me, it wouldn't take long for Father to hear about it. He'd inevitably blame me for failing to keep my brothers in line. With luck, I'd only receive a disappointed call. If his mood was particularly dark when the news reached him, he might make another visit here. Should Father discover I told Juniper about our previous connection, I was certain he'd attempt to force our departure, leaving Juniper behind. I knew revealing the truth carried risks, but after hearing her whisper James's name in her sleep, concealing it any longer wasn't an option. I just wished I'd had more opportunity to explain everything and observe her reaction. Her memories didn't suddenly resurface as I'd anticipated. I'm not sulking, Asher bit back, not even bothering to glance my way. I sighed and opened my book, Theories on Witchlight and the Unknown. I hoped it contained the information I needed to fully restore Juniper's memories. Witches were uncommon creatures who maintained distance from werewolves. Most resided in entirely different nations, making knowledge about them limited. I flipped through the ancient tome, frustrated by its useless content, just the rambling theories of a werewolf academic who'd clearly never met an actual witch. Finding someone who could break Juniper's memory spell was becoming increasingly urgent. Father's mysterious connections had somehow produced this witch powerful enough to lock away Juniper's memories, connections he'd hidden even from me. I need to reverse this spell, I muttered to myself. If just knowing her past puts Juniper in danger, those assassins will return the moment they discover she's remembering anything. Protecting her meant understanding what secrets lay buried in her mind. I needed to know why they'd targeted her and James in the first place. The answer was the key to keeping her safe. Asher slouched against the bookshelf, his usual confidence noticeably absent. "Give her some space, then apologize properly," I told him bluntly. "Don't expect her to come running back, but maybe, and it's a small maybe, she might eventually consider being friends." "Thanks for the encouragement," Asher replied, his voice heavy with sarcasm. This subdued version of my brother was unsettling. Something fundamental had shifted in him. "If you wanted cheerleading, you chose poorly. I heard what you said to Juniper." I kept my eyes on the book, avoiding his gaze. "You'll be lucky if she ever speaks to you again after that. Some lines shouldn't be crossed." Asher fell silent. I couldn't tell if he was angry at my honesty or actually processing the weight of his actions. While I wasn't about to twist the knife further, I also wasn't ready to absolve him of what he'd done to her. I didn't mean those things. I don't actually believe she's that type of person. Asher's words faded as he exhaled heavily. He gripped his hair in frustration, eyes closed tight. I completely lost control. Something took over me. I felt her slipping away, and I just broke. I closed my book, realizing these ancient texts wouldn't provide the answers I sought. Uncovering the truth would require assistance from an actual practicing witch. Adjusting my glasses, I looked at my brother, knowing my forthcoming words would sting. "She was never your possession, and your suffocating grip only drove her further away." Asher sat upright, eyes flashing with anger. "She was my girlfriend. I had every right." "Absolutely none." I cut him off with a growl, refusing to hear another justification. Dating someone doesn't grant ownership. She remained faithful, and if you'd bothered to communicate properly, you'd have understood that. She gave you her love and trust, and you shattered both. Until you accept complete responsibility for your actions, you haven't earned her forgiveness. Rising to my feet, I abandoned any attempt to coddle my younger brother. Take a hard look at yourself and fix whatever part of you thinks it's acceptable to treat someone as exceptional as Juniper with such cruelty. Asher remained silent as I exited the room. Axel stirred awake to find Juniper mumbling beside me. The words escaped me, but her face contorted with distress under the morning glow. Whatever nightmare gripped her clearly had power, and I wondered how many times she'd faced these demons alone. When I placed my hand on her arm to wake her, something unexpected happened. She immediately calmed. Her breathing regulated and her expression softened, a faint smile replacing the anguish. My chest tightened, knowing my simple touch brought her such peace. The pull I felt toward Juniper was overwhelming. Our night together had been beyond words, and I'd nearly marked her in that moment of connection. My wolf had urged me to claim her, but I'd resisted. A werewolf's mark wasn't something to be given hastily. It was permanent, binding. And the situation was complicated. The possibility that my brothers might share a partial mate bond with her hung between us like a shadow. The thought of Juniper with anyone else twisted something primal inside me. Before, keeping my distance had been a challenge, but now, after holding her through the night, impossible. The real Juniper exceeded every fantasy I'd entertained, and I couldn't bear losing what we'd found. Though it gnawed at me to admit, I could comprehend Asher's descent into jealousy-fueled madness. The same visceral connection with Juniper, that raw need to claim her as one's own, I felt it too. His emotions mirrored mine, even if our actions diverged at a critical fork. But I could never unleash such venom towards someone as radiant and genuine as her. The mere thought of Juniper choosing another would tear me apart inside. Yet if that truly brought her happiness, my love demanded I step aside. I'd willingly sacrifice myself countless times over to erase the pain that Asher's words had etched across her features. I silently appealed to the moon goddess that such a choice would never materialize before us. I pressed my lips gently against Juniper's forehead before carefully extracting myself from the bed. Dawn still granted me some time before she'd stir, and I intended to use it well. Surprising her with breakfast seemed the perfect start. Juniper! The aroma of toast roused me from sleep. Axel pushed the door closed with his foot, balancing a tray overflowing with food. My stomach growled loudly at the sight, and I began moving to get up. "Don't move. This is breakfast in bed," Axel commanded. I eased back down, tugging the sheet around my body. Daylight made me unexpectedly self-conscious about my nakedness in front of Axel. Axel perched on the bed's edge and set the tray before me. Wasn't sure what you'd want, so I grabbed everything. The tray contained an assortment of fruits, 2 egg varieties, oatmeal, pancakes, toast, biscuits, and several drink options. Impressive offerings from such a small motel. "You're amazing." I took a piece of toast, nibbling carefully to test my stomach's reaction after barely eating for over a day. "I know. Feel free to praise me all day." His lip curled with that familiar teasing expression. The normalcy of it comforted me. Despite our intimacy last night, he wasn't treating me differently. "Keep dreaming." I tilted my head and took a larger bite, my appetite suddenly returning in full force. He leaned closer, his grin turning wicked. "In my dreams, we're doing much more of what happened last night. Much more." I coughed at his remark. It shouldn't have made me so flustered. After all, Axel had thoroughly mapped every inch of my body last night, so embarrassment seemed pointless now. I harbored no regrets about our encounter, yet his scent wafted toward me, reducing me to a blushing, awkward mess. He slid a glass of orange juice across the table to soothe my throat. "Finish your breakfast, then get dressed." I picked up some clothes at a nearby shop for us. "Funny you want me clothed now," I shot back. Axel's eyebrows lifted as his mouth curved into a mischievous smile. I was merely suggesting some fresh air as the innocent option. Axel had already changed into his new attire. It was departure from his usual look, a t-shirt featuring Lake Vena's image with the name arched above it. The fabric hugged his torso, highlighting every contour. His jeans were lighter than his standard dark pairs, making him resemble a typical college student rather than the edgy dropout aesthetic he typically cultivated. Yet my throat went dry just looking at him. Even in the most ordinary clothes, he commanded attention. Fresh air sounds perfect. Despite the temptation of his alternative suggestion, my muscles felt tight and cramped. "What's your plan for today?" Axel asked, settling on the opposite side of the bed from where I sat. He spoke between mouthfuls. I wished he'd sit closer, though I didn't want to seem clingy. I grabbed Axel's hand and looked up at him. "I hadn't really considered it," I admitted. He finished cleaning his hands. "I was thinking, if you're feeling up to it, we could hike and then shift into our wolves." "That would be perfect." My wolf form had been neglected since before classes began. My academic focus had left that primal part of me restless, confined too long without release. After finishing breakfast, I changed clothes. Axel consulted with reception about local trails, and we headed out together. The sky was heavy with clouds, creating a chilly dampness that penetrated our clothing. Each breath sent sharp, cold air into my lungs, but the sensation was invigorating, awakening my senses rather than dulling them. Axel extended his hand toward me. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, which revealed uncertainty, as if wondering whether daylight clarity might change my feelings about what had happened between us. Taking his hand firmly, I pulled him toward me. Rising on my tiptoes, I pressed my lips against his, a deliberate gesture to show that despite not contemplating our future, I harbored no regrets about our night together. "Let's go," I said, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. We pushed through the overgrown trail, clearly untraveled for weeks, exactly what we needed. As werewolves, concealing our transformations from humans was non-negotiable. Breaking this cardinal rule meant facing a tribunal of 3 alphas who would determine if the violation was justified and decide appropriate punishment if it wasn't. After hiking several miles, I felt a sharp twinge in my side, a humbling reminder of my sedentary lifestyle. Though I maintained my figure, countless hours buried in library books hardly qualified as exercise. This challenging trek was making me reconsider my fitness priorities. "This should be far enough," Axel announced, suddenly veering off the established path into the dense forest. "We're leaving the trail?" I questioned. The terrain immediately changed, sloping downward with loose soil that made each step precarious. I clutched Axel's hand gratefully for stability. "Can't risk shifting this close to the path," he explained, throwing a wink over his shoulder. "Someone might wander by." I observed how effortlessly he navigated the treacherous ground, his movements fluid and confident despite the unstable footing. My gaze lingered on his broad shoulders and his unusually fluffy hair, free from its typical styling product. The sight of those soft strands made my fingers itch to run through them. Axel's appearance had a gentler quality today. His leather jacket was still drying from yesterday's downpour, replaced by a matching sweatshirt and t-shirt. This look was strikingly different from his usual style, revealing the authentic person behind the tough facade he typically presented. This softer version of him was what had attracted me in the first place, the vulnerable man beneath the hardened exterior. Memories of our intimate night flashed through my mind, sending warmth to my cheeks despite the cool air around us. My distraction cost me my footing. I stumbled over a rock, losing my balance momentarily. Axel's grip on my hand tightened as he quickly turned to steady me, holding me close as his eyes met mine. "Watch your step," he cautioned. "Thanks," I mumbled, averting my gaze. The last thing I wanted was for him to realize I'd tripped because I was fixated on him. He released me, maintaining only our hand connection. Surveying our surroundings, Axel nodded. "This spot should work. We can leave our clothes on that boulder to keep them intact." "What if someone discovers them?" I asked nervously. It had been ages since I'd transformed in woods that weren't werewolf territory. The possibility of an ordinary human stumbling upon us made me uneasy. Axel's eyebrow arched playfully, eyes twinkling with mischief. When our gazes locked, his expression shifted as he realized his humor had fallen flat. Taking my hand, he pressed his lips against it tenderly. "Don't worry about a thing." I bit the inside of my cheek, frustrated by my own nervousness. What had initially seemed like an exhilarating forest run now filled me with apprehension as the moment of truth approached. "What if someone spots us?" I voiced my concern. Axel eliminated the space between us, his palm warm against my cheek as he kissed me. The gentle pressure quickly evolved as his tongue sought entrance. I yielded without hesitation, opening to him. That single taste was enough to surrender myself to his every caress. When he pulled away, my body craved his touch, feeling suddenly hollow as the cool breeze replaced his comforting heat. "Better now?" he inquired. My anxiety had receded, replaced by the desire he'd kindled within me, though not completely vanquished. "Somewhat. Nothing will happen to you while I'm around. That's my promise." His tone carried unwavering conviction, and I recognized the weight behind those words. My mind drifted to Axel's recollection. Discovering James dead and me unconscious, we moved as fast as possible, but still too late. Though unspoken, I'd seen the self-condemnation in Axel's eyes when he recounted finding us after the attack. The burden of responsibility he shouldered, his determination never to lose someone again. I removed my jacket and shirt, trying to ignore the tightness squeezing my chest as I released Axel's hand. Guess there's nothing to worry about then. This wasn't me, making out with guys in secluded forests. My entire existence had been defined by caution and restraint. As the Omega orphan, I'd lived half my life trying to be invisible, terrified that any misstep would become ammunition against me. My reputation mattered. Academic achievement was the only spotlight I ever sought. But those concerns seemed meaningless now. Whether it was because Moira had already shredded my reputation to pieces, or because Axel's touch made rational thought impossible, I no longer cared about propriety. All I wanted was him, completely. I clutched his shirt, tugging it upward with urgency. A twig snapped somewhere nearby. We both froze. Axel immediately positioned himself in front of me, scanning our surroundings with heightened alertness. The hair along his forearms stood on end, his muscles coiled tight as he searched for whatever had made the noise. I drew a deep breath, trying to detect any unfamiliar scent. The forest remained unchanged around us, morning moisture clinging to vegetation, earth and wildflowers mingling in the air. Axel's posture gradually loosened as he turned back toward me. Probably just some animal passing through. I nodded, arriving at the same understanding. Axel's gaze returned to me, now tranquil. The disruption had broken our momentum, regardless of whether it posed any real threat. With practical efficiency, Axel removed his shirt and placed it on the nearby rock. His actions were purposeful, not enticing. I think you've got a point. That can be saved for later. The idea of some random woodland creature watching us isn't exactly what I had in mind. A laugh escaped me as I shook my head. Forest intimacy hadn't seemed particularly appealing, yet whenever Axel touched me, my reservations evaporated completely. Show me what you've got then, wolf boy. Let me see your other form. If I'd witnessed Axel's wolf before, it remained hidden in the memories I couldn't access. Anticipation tingled across my skin. There was something fascinating about observing a werewolf's animal form, particularly since modern werewolves spent significantly less time transformed than their ancestors had. Axel finished undressing, and I deliberately kept my focus on his eyes, knowing full well where a wandering gaze might lead us. He shot me a playful wink before his transformation began. His wolf emerged massive, predominantly blue-gray with scattered white markings throughout his coat. Black accents peppered his form. The resemblance to Nathan's wolf was evident, though Nathan's coloring contained more white than Axel's did. I stood breathless before him. His wolf form commanded awe, tall, imposing, almost overwhelming in sheer size. Those familiar stormy eyes had transformed, now alive with a wild intensity I'd never witnessed before. They swirled and sparkled with untamed energy. Anyone encountering this magnificent creature would instinctively step back. This was the unmistakable presence of a beta werewolf's son. My omega instincts whispered caution around such a dominant wolf. Yet deeper knowledge overrode this primal response. This powerful beast would never cause me harm. I stepped forward, running my fingers through the thick fur at his neck. The softness surprised me, warm and inviting. Axel whimpered at my touch. Where others might see only a fearsome predator, I recognized the devoted wolf who remained loyal even when I'd chosen his brother over him. The realization settled in my chest. "Wow," I whispered, continuing to stroke his coat. His body radiated heat, shielding me from the forest chill despite my near nakedness. Axel gently pushed his nose against my chest. Though our minds couldn't link, our souls connected in a wordless understanding. The message was clear. It was my turn to shift. We required no language. Our bond transcended such limitations. I stripped off my remaining clothing, arranging them carefully on the rock alongside my other garments. Axel's restlessness was palpable as I deliberately slowed my movements, savoring each second of anticipation. Facing him again, I transformed into my wolf form. The change happened swiftly as my body yielded to the moon goddess's influence. In my complete wolf state, Axel still dominated with his impressive stature. I allowed him time to absorb my appearance thoroughly, just as I had observed him. I rotated slowly, presenting every aspect of my form. His throat vibrated with a deep growl as he observed me. He approached deliberately, nuzzling me with tenderness. Our emotional connection flowed more intensely in our wolf states, as though we shared a single heartbeat. My insides quivered with anticipation. Despite previous runs with Josh and Moira in their wolf forms, nothing compared to this profound connection. I affectionately licked Axel's face, catching him off guard. When he attempted to reciprocate, I deftly evaded him. Frustrated, he snarled and lunged again. I twisted away effortlessly, my wolf body possessing agility my human form lacked. Our chase began in earnest. I darted away, experiencing a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Axel's powerful paws struck the earth behind me as he pursued. I could almost hear his indignant protest. Had my wolf form permitted, laughter would have burst from me. I darted between trees while Axel followed in pursuit. He matched my pace effortlessly, deliberately holding back, I suspected, to savor the chase. The sensation of wind through my fur and the burn of energy in my muscles was exhilarating. Though I transformed less frequently than I should, my wolf form possessed raw power and speed that my human body couldn't match. Caught up in the physical thrill, I failed to notice when Axel's footsteps vanished behind me. I decelerated, looking back to find nothing but empty forest stretching between the trees. Confusion sent my heart racing. Axel outmatched me in strength and ability. He wouldn't lose track of me unless by choice. I reversed direction, following my own trail, desperate to locate him. He wouldn't abandon me without reason. The inability to mentally link with him frustrated me. Different pack origins meant that despite our partial mate status, we couldn't establish a connection unless he marked me formally. I caught his scent and tracked it urgently. My mind fixated solely on discovering his location and the reason for his abrupt disappearance. His trail diverged from mine several 100 feet back, but nothing indicated why he'd suddenly changed course. I froze mid-howl when I spotted him. Not Axel, but a human in full camouflage, gripping a rifle. The taxidermied wolf from the hotel lobby flashed in my mind and my lungs seized. This hunter stood motionless, evaluating me, his weapon aimed downward for now. One wrong move and I'd become his next trophy. Something wasn't right. Where was his scent? Even focused on finding Axel, I should have detected a human presence nearby. I inhaled deeply. Nothing. It was as if I faced a phantom. He must have used something to mask his natural odor, though I hadn't known such techniques existed. Unusual to find a wolf in these parts, the hunter remarked, his coal-black eyes calculating and cold as they assessed me. Nothing about his gaze suggested mercy, especially one your size. The gun remained lowered, but that meant little. He could raise and fire in seconds. My eyes darted around, searching for escape routes. Could I outrun a bullet? Doubtful. A distraction would serve me better, but my mind raced without producing solutions. I needed to act, but every option seemed equally fatal. Axel was somewhere out there, unaware of the danger, while I stood face to face with a predator who hunted predators. Axel, I attempted to establish our mental link despite knowing no connection existed between us. A desperate hope lingered that somehow he'd sense my distress and come searching. His sudden disappearance left me vulnerable, yet I craved his presence. Instinctively, I felt Axel would navigate this dangerous situation with the confident precision I currently lacked. Tell me now, are you alone, or is your pack hiding nearby? The hunter demanded, his voice cold with anticipation. I'd love nothing more than to display an entire werewolf family on my wall. As he raised his weapon, survival instinct kicked in. I needed to run. Any distance between us improved my chances. Werewolves possessed superior physical abilities compared to humans, but firearms eliminated that advantage instantly. An unarmed hunter wouldn't concern me, but bullet wounds from a distance would be preferable to execution at close range. My body could recover from most gunshot injuries, provided vital organs remained intact. I bolted forward in a desperate sprint. Suddenly, a fierce snarl echoed through the forest. The gun discharged with a deafening crack. Axel's pain-filled yelp pierced my consciousness, triggering complete paralysis. Every traumatic memory from my past crashed over me simultaneously, sending sharp pain shooting through my skull. My lungs refused to work. My mind went blank, my muscles locked in place. Juniper. I twisted around, forcing myself to confront the aftermath. Axel, still in his wolf form, stood over the hunter's body. His massive chest rose and fell rapidly, his eyes fixed on the man with murderous intensity. The hunter's weapon lay mangled beside him. Blood soaked the hunter's shirt as he glared up at Axel, his face contorted with undimmed hatred. Despite his injuries, determination still blazed in his eyes. His hand moved swiftly downward. A glint of silver caught the light. I let out a warning howl, and Axel leaped backward just as the blade sliced through the air where he had stood. Axel darted to my side, his body language urging me to flee. I can't leave you, I thought desperately, unwilling to abandon him. Though unable to hear my thoughts, Axel seemed to understand my hesitation. He nudged me with his muzzle, communicating that he'd follow close behind. I remained prone, still paralyzed by the moment I'd thought the bullet had found him. Axel pushed against me again, urgency radiating from him. The hunter began struggling to his feet, breaking my paralysis. I bolted, following our scent trail back to where we'd left our clothing. I paused, preparing to shift back to human form, but Axel rushed ahead of me with a warning growl. He snatched our clothes between his powerful jaws, gesturing for me to keep moving. He took off at a sprint, and I followed without question. Though uncertain of our destination or plan, my trust in Axel was absolute. so I pushed forward, keeping pace just behind him. Axel's vigilant glances over his shoulder confirmed I was keeping pace. His speed had increased drastically from our earlier pace, revealing he'd been deliberately slowing down for me before. The realization dawned on me that our destination was the motel. I couldn't comprehend why we hadn't reverted to human form deep within the forest's protective cover. Once human again, hunters would have no cause to pursue us, yet approaching town only increased our risk of exposure. Only when buildings became visible between the trees did Axel finally halt. He dropped the clothes and began transforming, and I immediately followed suit. "Where did you disappear to back there?" I asked as soon as my human voice returned. My words faltered, revealing the fear coursing through me and causing my hands to tremble uncontrollably. "Details later. We need to move now." The unmistakable urgency in Axel's tone heightened my anxiety. I hurriedly dressed, still confused by our situation. Despite the hunter's attempt to shoot us, logic suggested we should be safe by now. "The motel's nearby. Shouldn't we be in the clear?" I questioned while pulling my sweatshirt on. "That was a werewolf hunter," Axel replied, his voice unusually tense. "How can you be certain?" I clenched my fingers into tight fists in a futile attempt to stop their shaking. Because he was using silver bullets, I spotted the blood seeping from Axel's side and immediately let out a startled cry. My stomach turned at the crimson stain spreading across his shirt. The sight sent my mind reeling, flashing back to another time when blood, too much blood, had surrounded me. "Juniper," Axel called, his voice seeming distant through my haze of panic. "Juniper." His firm grip on my arms anchored me to reality. The absence of my usual nickname from his lips underscored the gravity of our situation. "Look at me," he commanded, his tone steady and resolute despite his injury. I inhaled deeply, fighting to regain my composure. Even wounded, Axel maintained his composure, taking charge as always. Meeting his gaze, I felt that unwavering trust between us, the certainty that I'd place my life in his hands without hesitation. "Good. Now listen carefully," he instructed. "We have to go now. We don't have time to get our stuff. I'm okay. It's just a surface wound. The blood is making it look worse than it really is." "Okay," I responded, feigning calm while my insides churned with worry. The hunter's silver bullets confirmed our worst fears. He specifically targeted werewolves like us. Others might be nearby, making this area dangerous. More urgently, Axel needed treatment. Even a superficial silver wound could cause intense pain and weakness, especially if particles entered his bloodstream. Axel clasped my hand, and together we raced toward his motorcycle. Though he had his wallet and keys on him, his leather jacket remained in our motel room. Fortunately, we'd left nothing else of importance behind. The motorcycle engine growled to life as we departed. I instinctively wrapped my arms around Axel's torso but immediately loosened my grip when he stiffened with pain. His blood stained my arm, a constant reminder of the danger we'd escaped. Despite his stoic facade, fear gripped my heart with each passing minute. I desperately wanted him to stop and treat the wound before our long journey back to the university. But Axel's warning about the werewolf hunter meant we couldn't risk even a brief pause. All I could do was hope the injury was as minor as he claimed. Our return trip to campus felt excruciatingly drawn out, though we eventually arrived intact. Axel guided his motorcycle to a stop outside Ethan's apartment complex. When the engine died, the sudden silence was jarring. "JJ, I need your help getting to Ethan's place," Axel said, deploying the kickstand before slumping forward. His breathing had become labored and uneven. I dismounted quickly and moved to support him. His eyes were clenched shut, his complexion ashen and damp with perspiration. His condition had deteriorated significantly during our journey, either from blood loss or silver poisoning. Both possibilities terrified me. "We should take you to a hospital," I insisted. "No." Despite his weakened state, Axel's tone was unyielding. "Take me to Ethan." "But..." "Please." I drew a deep breath, uncertain if we were making the right choice, but trusting that Ethan would have the knowledge to help us through this crisis. I supported Axel's weight as we entered the apartment building. His body felt heavier than usual against mine, and his typically warm skin was now cold and clammy. Blood soaked through his clothing, making my hands sticky as I guided him forward. My muscles strained under his increasing dead weight, but I pushed through the discomfort. At Ethan's door, I pounded with frantic urgency, shouting his name repeatedly. The neighbors probably thought I'd lost my mind, but I couldn't care less. Time was critical. Silver poisoning from the bullet could kill Axel if not treated immediately. "Please be home," I whispered desperately between knocks. Without Ethan, we had no options. I had neither a vehicle to transport Axel to medical care, nor a phone to call for emergency services. My fist hammered against the wood with increasing desperation. The door suddenly pulled open, revealing Ethan's shocked face. "What on earth, Juniper?" His expression shifted from annoyance to alarm as he assessed the scene before him. "Axel was shot by a werewolf hunter," I explained breathlessly. "Silver bullet. He's bleeding heavily and weakening by the minute. He refused the hospital and insisted on coming here instead." My explanation came out in choppy fragments, my brain racing faster than my mouth could follow. Without warning, Axel's knees buckled. His full weight collapsed against me, nearly dragging us both down. Ethan lunged forward, catching his brother's other side just in time. "Help me get him to the table," Ethan commanded, already shifting into crisis mode as we maneuvered Axel's failing body deeper into the apartment. Together, we hauled Axel to the kitchen. Though drifting between awareness and unconsciousness, Axel was mostly supported by Ethan's strength. I quickly swept everything off the table while Ethan lifted his brother onto it effortlessly. Tearing open Axel's shirt, Ethan revealed the wound, an entry point just below the ribs. He turned Axel over, his expression darkening with concern. "No exit wound. You mentioned a werewolf hunter?" Ethan asked. "Axel identified him, said he knew because the hunter used silver bullets." Ethan muttered a curse. "We need to extract that bullet immediately. He can't heal while it's inside him. When did this happen?" "About an hour ago. We were running through the forest when we encountered the hunter. We raced back here on his motorcycle as quickly as possible," I said. "He drove for an hour in this state?" Ethan looked shocked as I nodded. "We don't have time to get professional help. We'll have to handle this ourselves." "Us? Do you know how to perform something like this?" "I can manage it," Ethan stated firmly, "but I'll need your assistance. Get the first aid kit from under my bathroom sink. Grab towels, too. I'll contact the doctor. Hurry." I sprinted to the bathroom and located the supplies easily. When I returned to the kitchen, Ethan stood over Axel, his eyes unfocused. He was mentally connecting with someone. Within moments, his gaze cleared and locked onto mine. "This won't be simple, but time is critical. Place one towel between Axel's teeth. He'll scream from the pain, but you must remain composed. I need your help keeping him immobile. If he moves while I extract the bullet." Ethan's voice faded, leaving the grave consequence unspoken but understood. Axel's skin had turned ghostly pale. My heart hammered in my chest, but the prospect of losing him forever terrified me more than anything I was about to witness. "I'm prepared," I stated firmly. Ethan acknowledged with a nod, selecting elongated tweezers from the medical kit. After sterilizing the instrument, he inhaled deeply. "Secure his shoulders. I'll remove the bullet on 3. 1, 2. He paused for another breath. 3. The tweezers penetrated Axel's wound, causing his body to arch violently. Despite the towel muffling his cries, his agony manifested through every tensed muscle. I held my breath throughout the procedure, silently pleading with the moon goddess to spare Axel's life. "Juniper. Almost there," Ethan muttered, trying to sound confident, but Axel's agonized screams drowned out his words. The tweezers probed deeper into Axel's chest cavity. His body convulsed violently, forcing me to throw my entire weight against him to keep him still. My arms trembled with the effort, while my stomach churned at the sight of his contorted face. I just wanted his suffering to end. With a final twist, Ethan extracted the tweezers. Between the metal tips gleamed the bullet, its silver surface still visible beneath the crimson coating. "Got it," Ethan announced flatly. "Hold this gauze against the wound." He walked to the kitchen, dropped the bullet into a cup with a hollow ping. Amazing how something barely larger than a pebble could tear through flesh and bone so easily. I pressed the gauze against the raw opening. Axel had stopped screaming, but his breathing came in shallow, irregular gasps. Blood quickly soaked through the white cloth, warm and sticky against my skin. "Don't die," I whispered. guilt crushing me as I wondered if we'd wasted critical minutes getting to Ethan's place instead of a hospital. Axel's eyelids fluttered open, his fingers suddenly clamped around my wrist. "I will always protect you, even if it costs me my life." His words sent ice through my veins, too familiar, too painful. "Don't say that." His eyes fell shut, his grip going slack. A panicked sound escaped my throat as terror seized my heart. Ethan appeared beside me instantly. "I've got thee." I sat frozen, unable to move my fingers or draw breath. My mind blanked. Something about this scene struck a chord, a buried memory hammering to break free but trapped behind mental barriers. "Juniper." Ethan's voice came gently as his hand rested on my shoulder. "He's going to be okay. The doctor's almost here, and with the bullet removed, his body's already healing. You can release now." I stepped away as Ethan immediately pressed his palms against Axel's wound to maintain pressure. The moment my hands left the bloody mess, my stomach revolted. I bolted from the kitchen, barely making it to the bathroom before violently emptying my stomach. I retched until nothing remained. Logic told me to return and assist with Axel's care, but my body refused to comply. I collapsed against the wall, palms pressed against the cold tiles. The day had begun so perfectly. How had it deteriorated into this nightmare? A werewolf hunter had no business being this close to school grounds. The mounted wolf above the motel reception desk flashed through my mind, triggering another wave of nausea as a terrible question formed. Had that once been someone like Axel? If my stomach hadn't been empty, I would have been hunched over the toilet again. The front door swung open, and a chorus of voices flooded the room. I couldn't make out their words. They sounded distant and unclear. My werewolf abilities could have enhanced my hearing if I'd tapped into them, but exhaustion had drained me of any will to try. A gentle knock broke the bathroom silence. When I offered no response, the door inched open as Ethan peered inside. Noticing me slumped on the floor, he slipped in and closed the door behind him. He crouched before me, his eyes conducting a careful assessment. "Are you okay?" he murmured, his tone barely above a whisper, like someone addressing a frightened animal. His assessment wasn't far off. I managed a nod, but couldn't voice the lie. Physical injury had spared me, yet okay felt dishonest. What right did I have to complain when Axel lay fighting for his life after taking a hunter's bullet meant for me? Rising to his feet, Ethan grabbed a washcloth and dampened it with warm water. He took my hands in his, gently cleansing away Axel's dried blood. "You don't need to pretend to be fine." "Yeah, it's acceptable not to be." My throat constricted against his kindness. He threw himself at the hunter to shield me. He might die. He still could. "Axel will pull through," Ethan stated with forced confidence, though worry tightened the corners of his eyes. "The doctor's with him now." We removed the bullet in time. I watched silently as Ethan continued wiping blood from my skin. There was something unexpectedly calming about his careful touch. "James died protecting me, didn't he?" I asked. Ethan had only mentioned that James and I were attacked, with James not surviving. The exact details remained unclear, but something inside told me Ethan knew what truly happened at the river that day. Ethan tensed visibly at the mention of James's name. "Did your memories come back?" I shook my head. Axel shared what he knew about James and the incident from his viewpoint, but he didn't witness the actual attack. He never described how James died, but when I heard that gunshot, my chest constricted painfully as I struggled against the mental barrier blocking my memories. I just knew it wasn't the first time someone sacrificed themselves to save me. Ethan's shoulders slumped at my response. "I see." He continued cleaning the blood, using the task to gather his thoughts. "That day by the river, I don't have the complete picture either. I arrived to find James already wounded. The assassin was preparing to turn on you, but fled when I appeared." His gaze grew unfocused, a heavy weight of sorrow visibly pressing down on him. He set aside the blood-stained towel. "James was still breathing when I reached him. He apologized for not being strong enough, then made me swear I'd always protect you." My hands trembled as Ethan confirmed what I had suspected. "Nobody should risk themselves for me. I bring only misfortune. The next time—" "No," he interrupted firmly. His hands gripped my face, forcing my eyes to meet his. "Don't ever say that about yourself. You're not a bad omen. You're a treasure worth protecting. Axel will recover." He took a bullet, I replied, my tone sharper than intended. I'm no treasure. I'm just an orphaned Omega. There's nothing remarkable about me. Why would anyone put their life on the line for someone like me? Something fractured within me. Throughout my life, I'd never allowed my status to diminish my self-worth. Despite Moira's vicious rumors, despite Asher shattering my heart, I maintained my confidence. But this incident broke something fundamental inside. The Burrells were among the nation's most influential werewolf families, and they'd already lost James protecting me. Now Axel nearly died doing the same. The weight of it made me feel insignificant, undeserving of such sacrifice. Listen carefully, Ethan said, his voice dropping to a deeper register. You are far more than your status. You're intelligent, courageous, compassionate, and resilient. Always have been. You possess this quality that draws people to you. Even when we were children, other werewolves envied our connection to you. You're exceptional in ways you can't even see. But, Ethan's gaze locked onto mine, his voice unwavering. You are Juniper, the disheveled, forward girl who collided with me while fleeing from, or perhaps toward, something unknown. Your chocolate hair and amber eyes, those plump lips and soft skin haunt my dreams nightly. When you speak, it's a siren's melody. When you appear, it's with angelic grace. That's how I've always seen you and always will. Despite your doubts, you hold a special place for me and my brothers, a connection so profound it consumes us entirely. His hands cupped my face with reassuring firmness. Never had Ethan spoken with such conviction before. Though the mystery of the Burrell family's attachment to me remained, his certainty was impossible to deny. For reasons beyond my comprehension, I mattered. My composure crumbled instantly. Tears streamed down my cheeks as conflicting emotions of terror and relief overwhelmed me. I'd been holding everything in, forcing myself to stay strong until Axel was treated. Somehow, Ethan's tender words granted me permission to finally break. He settled onto the floor, drawing me into his lap. His fingers gently stroked my hair, while his arms encircled me protectively. Shh! It's okay, you're safe, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. Enveloped in his scent and warmth, I felt secure at last. Yet the tears continued uncontrollably. I was so scared he was going to die, I confessed between ragged sobs. I understand. I know, but Axel will pull through. He has to. Ethan's voice cracked, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't noticed before. It suddenly hit me that my pain wasn't solitary. Ethan had already watched one brother die and now faced the possibility of losing Axel too. I reached around his waist and pressed my face against his chest, trying to offer him even a small measure of the solace he'd given me. We remained there on the bathroom floor, clutching each other, time becoming meaningless. In that raw moment, I felt certain of one thing. Ethan would always be my anchor when darkness threatened to pull me under. Juniper. I exited the bathroom with Ethan to check Axel's condition. They'd relocated him to the couch, his upper body wrapped in pristine bandages. Though unconscious, his breathing remained steady, a reassuring sign of life. Ethan moved directly to the doctor, engaging in quiet conversation. Different voices drew my attention to the corner where Nathan and Asher stood talking. Of course, Ethan would call them. Axel was their brother and seriously wounded. They needed to know. Seeing Asher made my chest constrict painfully. Our last encounter had been our breakup, when I climbed onto Axel's motorcycle. Though so much had happened emotionally, barely any time had actually passed. Guilt twisted in my stomach at how quickly I'd become intimate with Axel after ending things with Asher. I didn't regret the night with Axel. It felt genuine and right. Nor did I regret breaking up with Asher after his treatment of me. Still, the terrible timing gnawed at my conscience, making the already complicated situation feel even more fraught. Asher pivoted away from Nathan, his gaze finally settling on me since my entrance. His expression remained stoic, not hostile, yet the space between us felt charged with remorse and lost possibilities. The weight of what we could have had pressed down. If his jealousy hadn't consumed him, if those false accusations hadn't spilled from his lips, if he hadn't aligned with Moira and her venomous rumors. I wouldn't have left with Axel that night. We wouldn't have stayed at that motel. No midnight run would have occurred, and Axel wouldn't be lying here, shot and unconscious. I wrenched my attention away from Asher. Dwelling on alternate timelines served no purpose now, not with Axel fighting for his life on that bed. Junie. Nathan's voice cut through my thoughts, surprise evident as he registered my presence. His use of that nickname startled me, especially after our complicated history. He'd made no secret of his resentment when I rejected his advances, even retaliating by publicly kissing Moira during homegoing. Logic dictated he should view me with the same disdain as Asher. Instead, Nathan crossed the distance between us, wrapping me in an unexpected embrace. Whatever bitterness he harbored had apparently evaporated with news of the attack. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I replied, blinking in confusion at this sudden shift in his demeanor. Axel protected me. "What happened? I still don't understand how he was shot," Nathan asked, his gaze drifting to his brother's still form. A concerned frown creased his features, the first genuine worry for Axel I'd ever witnessed him display in my presence. "I would like to know that, too. In detail, if possible," Ethan said, stepping closer to me. "What you witnessed was undoubtedly traumatic, but if werewolf hunters are operating that near our school, I need to alert our father immediately." "Don't pressure her," Asher interjected from across the room. I barely contained a derisive laugh. The irony wasn't lost on me, Asher telling someone else to back off when he'd never respected boundaries himself. Taking a steadying breath, I met Ethan's concerned gaze. "It's fine. I can talk about it." After Ethan dismissed the doctor, we gathered around the table. They all waited expectantly while I struggled with the crushing weight of guilt. Axel lay injured because of me. If I'd reacted faster, he wouldn't have needed to put himself between me and danger. I stared at my intertwined fingers, unable to face any of them. We went to the lake after. I stopped abruptly, avoiding any mention of the Asher situation in this group setting. Axel suggested we leave the city for some fresh air. The only accommodation available was this unsettling motel with taxidermy everywhere. They had mounted animals all over the walls, even a wolf displayed above the reception desk. It was disturbing, but we had limited options. I inhaled deeply, mentally filtering through what happened next. The private moments between Axel and me weren't something I intended to share, particularly with Asher present. The following day, we opted for a woodland run to let our wolves exercise. It had been some time since my last shift. We trekked miles from the small town before leaving the marked trail. After checking thoroughly for human scents and finding none, we decided it was secure enough to transform. I noticed Asher's expression contort at this part of my recounting. Throughout our relationship, we'd never shifted in each other's presence. I couldn't help wondering what thoughts crossed his mind hearing about Axel and me sharing that experience. Pulling my gaze away from him, I concentrated on my fidgeting hands. We were sprinting through the trees. Axel had been trailing me, then vanished without warning. I'm still unclear what happened or where he disappeared to. While searching for him, I encountered the hunter. He aimed his weapon at me. Out of nowhere, Axel charged and tackled him. That's when the gun discharged. I needed a moment to collect myself. The gunshot's echo and Axel's blood-stained body still triggered an almost paralyzing reaction in me. Fighting through my emotional turmoil, I pressed on, aware of how crucial these details were. Axel claimed he was fine, and we fled immediately, knowing we needed distance between us and the scene. "Was the hunter killed?" Ethan inquired, recording relevant information from my account in his notes. "I'm uncertain, but I can't say for sure about the extent of his injuries. He was still breathing when we departed, but our priority was escaping rather than assessing the hunter's condition." After transforming back to human form, I noticed Axel's wound. He insisted he was fine, but emphasized we needed to leave immediately. The area wasn't safe. "We drove straight back here, and that's where you found us." Ethan gently placed his hand over mine. "I need you to sketch out where this happened as accurately as you can remember." Taking the offered pen and paper, I drew a rough map of our route. Ethan examined it with intense focus. "Appreciate this," he said, rising with the paper clutched in his hand. "I have some calls to make. Nathan, Asher, move Axel to my bed. I want him under observation until he regains consciousness." The brothers dispersed to follow his instructions. Ethan hadn't given me any task, though I wished he had. Instead, I remained at the table, fidgeting with my fingers, contemplating what a hunter's presence might mean for everyone at the school. Footsteps approached, but I lacked the energy to look up. The familiar scent made it unnecessary. Asher's presence was unmistakable. He pulled out the chair opposite me and sat down. "How are you holding up?" His tone carried a gentleness and concern that reminded me painfully of the boy I was falling for not so long ago. "I'm fine." The coldness in my voice was deliberate. Asher had already shown his true thoughts about me. I refused his pity just because I'd experienced something horrific. "You're not fine, June. It's written all over you." He extended his arm and grazed my hand. I jerked away as if touched by something venomous. "Don't. June, Please. I lacked the strength for this discussion." I moved my hands beneath the table and faced him directly. I sensed his remorse and anticipated his excuses or apology, neither of which I wanted to hear. "I just need to apologize. I spoke without thinking and hurt you. You should know that." Rage bubbled up inside me. I'd explicitly told Asher I didn't want his apology, yet he ignored my request. What difference does your knowledge make? Your words cut deep. They shattered me, and no apology changes that. Those words can't be unsaid. You were supposed to be my rock, my confidant, and instead, you drove a knife through my heart. My voice had risen to near shouting levels, and I despised how he could provoke such fury in me. "I'm so sorry." His voice cracked with barely audible pain. In another time, seeing him this broken might have affected me, but not now. Not while Axel fought to survive after putting himself in danger to save me. I rose to my feet, hands balled into tight fists. "I already said I can't deal with this now." I moved toward the hallway, intent on checking Axel's condition. At the corridor entrance leading to the bedroom, I paused unexpectedly. Something about Asher's visible anguish resonated within me, despite my resistance. Forgiveness remained distant, perhaps permanently out of reach. Still, I couldn't ignore the flicker of emotion his pain evoked. Without turning back to face him, I spoke, my voice deliberately neutral. "Perhaps we can have this discussion another time, a much later time." I pushed the door to Ethan's bedroom open to find Nathan seated beside the bed, his eyes fixed on Axel's motionless form. The sight was jarring. Nathan's typical hostility toward his brother had given way to unmistakable concern etched across his features. I eased the door shut behind me and remained by the entrance, hesitant to disrupt the moment. When Nathan noticed my presence, the rigid set of his shoulders visibly loosened. Strange seeing him like this. Nathan muttered, his gaze returning to Axel. "He's always been the invincible one. Stubborn, unbreakable." His voice caught, and he expelled a heavy breath, running a hand through his disheveled hair. I sagged against the door, fatigue weighing on me. Watching someone you care about suffer is never easy. "I don't—" Nathan stopped abruptly, reconsidering. "For years, I've carried this anger toward him, convinced myself we'd be better without him around. That you'd be better off, too." His eyes flicked to the bandages covering Axel's wound. "Then he takes a bullet meant for you. Makes me wonder if I've been wrong all along." The injury had stripped away pretenses, forcing vulnerability from both brothers. Axel's brush with death echoed their past loss of James, cracking open emotional walls they'd maintained for years. "What happened between you two?" I asked, seizing this rare opening. The brothers' tension had always been palpable, but I'd never felt entitled to ask about its source until now. Nathan's eyes clouded with old pain as he spoke. "I believed he didn't give a damn about any of us. After Mom died, he barricaded himself in his room for weeks. Refused the funeral, refused to speak. I pleaded with him to come out. I needed my big brother, needed all my brothers. His silence convinced me he hated me." "When did your mother die?" I asked quietly. The Burrell brothers never mentioned their mother, and I hadn't known she was gone. "I was 6, Nathan said flatly. "Axel and Asher were 9. The timing struck me, barely a year after my memory loss, after James was killed. "You were all just children," I said. "Everyone processes grief differently." Nathan didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on Axel's still form, checking for the rise and fall of his chest. It wasn't only that. When he finally emerged, he was a stranger. No more games, always isolated, either locked away or deliberately alone. Everything our father asked, he either ignored or deliberately sabotaged. Constant fights. I didn't know who he was anymore. His voice hardened. One day I just stopped trying, realized he didn't care about me the way I cared about him. You all lost so much in such a short time. James, then me, then their mother within a single year. too much burden for any child to bear. My parents' death carved the deepest wound in my memory, and I couldn't fathom adding more grief to that. Nathan rose to his feet, fixing his gaze on me. You know, don't you? About James. I nodded briefly, silently hoping he wouldn't press for details or drag us into that painful conversation. Is that why you and Axel were at the lake? He stepped forward, hands trembling as he awaited my answer. He was searching for logic behind the chaos, though I doubted any simple explanation existed. No, Axel took me there because I ended things with Asher. I needed distance. Nathan's expression transformed, eyes wide, jaw slack. His mouth worked soundlessly for several seconds, resembling a fish suddenly plucked from water. I heard about the dance, or at least the rumors. Didn't think you'd actually leave Asher over it. That incident was just part of it, but I'd rather not discuss this now if you don't mind. These past days have drained me of words. I pulled my bottom lip between my teeth, biting down. I wanted my mind anywhere but on what transpired between Asher and me. That pain, while real, seemed trivial compared to Axel lying shot because of me. Nathan bridged the gap between us, drawing me into his embrace. This second instance of physical contact made me question whether his previous avoidance had been my imagination. That's absolutely fine. Whatever you're dealing with, I'm sorry it's causing you pain. Nathan guided my head to rest against his chest, his fingers gently combing through my hair. His towering height, the tallest among all the Burrell brothers, became unmistakable as my head nestled against his torso. I pulled away slightly after a moment, craning my neck to meet his gaze. Nathan? Yes? Were you angry with me because of my relationship with Asher? His arms dropped to his sides. I'm not surprised that's your assumption. He raked his fingers through his hair. Angry? No. Jealous? Sad? Isolated? Absolutely. I grasped why you chose him. I thought he would. He stopped mid-sentence, shaking his head. No, I wasn't angry with you, but I needed distance to process my feelings. Is that why Moira was your homecoming date? I asked, the memory still piercing my heart. I had never imagined Nathan capable of such tactics, and part of me still resisted accepting it. Nathan's expression darkened considerably. I had hoped you hadn't witnessed that. I'm not dictating your dating life, but I'd advise caution with Moira, I told him. Having just turned Nathan down, I felt awkward commenting on his romantic choices, but Moira's reputation concerned me. I suspected she might be pursuing him solely to wound me, though I'd never voiced that thought. It would only sound insulting, regardless of its truth. You've completely misunderstood, Nathan said firmly. I'd never date someone as venomous as her. She cornered me with this ridiculous speech about us being destined, her being head cheerleader, and me the wolfball star. I initially planned to reject her outright, knowing her interest was superficial. Then I thought I might leverage the situation to stop her spreading those vicious rumors about you. Trust me, Junie, I wasn't there because I wanted her. By the night's end, she was already kissing some other wolfball player. I swear I wouldn't put you through that. I know exactly what she's done to you. Even during my angriest moments with you, I wouldn't stoop to dating her. Without thinking, I embraced Nathan, clearly catching him off guard. That's such a relief. I was seriously worried about you. You were? He asked, genuine surprise in his voice. Of course, I love you, just not romantically. You're like a brother to me, and I never want to see you hurt. The words poured from me with genuine emotion. My desire to shield Nathan wasn't new. It had always been there, buried deep within. That's such a relief, Nathan replied. He seemed ready to add something more, but his expression suddenly went distant. When his focus returned, his brow furrowed. Ethan needs Asher and me for an urgent meeting. Will you be all right staying with Axel? Yes. Though curious about their meeting, I didn't ask to join. My place was here beside Axel, who had put himself between me and danger. I couldn't imagine leaving until his eyes opened, and maybe not even then. If anything changes with his condition, contact the doctor immediately, then call us, understand? Nathan instructed. I will. I'll watch over him. It was the smallest repayment for his sacrifice. Nathan placed a gentle kiss on my head before rushing from the room, leaving just Axel and me in the quiet space. I gripped Axel's hand beside his hospital bed. His flesh felt alien, too cold, too motionless. Nathan had been right about how unsettling it was seeing him this way. During our nights together, Axel always maintained contact, his body a constant anchor against mine even in sleep. This stillness wasn't him. The absence terrified me. I enveloped his hand between both of mine, trying desperately to transfer my warmth into him. "Please wake up," I begged in hushed tones, praying for the smallest response. Please. The thought crushed me. I couldn't bear responsibility for another Burrell brother's death. Ethan might consider me worth protecting, but I disagreed completely. No life should be exchanged for mine. Worse, after all obstacles between Axel and me had finally cleared, I faced losing him before we'd truly begun. The cruelty was unbearable. Minutes and hours blurred as I monitored each rise and fall of his chest, counting breaths like a ritual to ward off disaster. This mechanical observation kept panic at bay. His continued breathing meant hope remained. People entered and exited the room periodically. The door opened and closed, voices spoke words I barely registered. Someone placed tea in my hands. Food appeared, but hunger seemed irrelevant. Nothing mattered until Axel opened his eyes. I stared at the food Ethan had brought, feeling hollow despite his encouragement. "Juniper, you really should try to eat something. Axel would want you to. Just a few bites. That's all I'm asking." I managed to force down several mouthfuls before being left alone with my thoughts again, the silence of the hospital room broken only by the steady beep of monitors. Exhaustion eventually claimed me. My head drooped, consciousness slipping away for what felt like seconds before I jerked upright, heart pounding. I couldn't allow myself rest, not when Axel might need me. Pushing myself up from where I'd been slumped against the edge of the bed, I leaned forward to study his face, counting each shallow breath as reassurance he was still fighting. Then it happened. Axel's eyelids trembled, then lifted. His fingers tightened around mine with surprising strength as those familiar eyes found focus. "Hey there, beautiful," he murmured, voice rough from disuse. "Axel," I gasped, unable to hold back the sudden flood of tears that blurred my vision. Relief crashed through me like a physical force. "You lied to me," I said, my voice trembling as I locked eyes with Axel. He creased his forehead. "About what exactly?" "That it was just a surface wound, and you were fine." I clutched his hand desperately. Despite my anger over his deception about his injuries, I couldn't bring myself to release him. "I am fine," he insisted with a forced smile that crumbled into a grimace of pain he couldn't disguise. "You almost died." The words caught in my throat, my chest so tight I could barely draw breath. "JJ," Axel spoke my name gently. "Come here." He gestured for me to join him on the bed, and I didn't hesitate before sliding in beside him. His familiar scent enveloped me as he wrapped an arm around me, pressing his lips against my forehead. "I'm sorry for not being truthful. I didn't realize how dangerous staying there was. If more hunters appeared, I wouldn't have been able to protect you. I just wanted to get us away quickly without making you panic." His calm explanation washed over me, and I understood his lie wasn't meant to hurt me. I nestled against his arm, careful to avoid his injuries. "If something like this happens again, promise you'll tell me the truth. I can handle it. I'm stronger than you give me credit for." "I don't think you're weak. I just wanted to protect you, but I promise I'll be honest if something like that happens again." Axel's fingers moved gently through my hair, wiping tears from my eyes. His touch was calming, his voice reassuring. I knew the situation was backward. He needed comfort with those injuries, not me. "Thank you," I said, pushing myself upright on the bed. "I need you to promise me something else. Anything. Promise me you won't die. I need you to stay alive." Axel frowned, taking my hand and absently playing with my fingers. "JJ, we all die sooner or later. We're not immortal." I bit my inner cheek, recognizing the irrationality of my request. Death was inevitable, but I'd faced too much of it already. "I know. Just don't die yet, okay?" Axel pressed his lips together, then extended his hand toward me. His injuries prevented him from sitting up, silently asking me to come closer. He pulled me against him in a tight embrace. "I will do my best. I can promise you that much, because I'm not ready to lose you." Ethan. Finding Juniper curled against Axel didn't surprise me. Anyone could see how she looked at him. She'd been falling for my brother for some time, despite her attempts to deny it. With Asher no longer between them, nothing stopped her from gravitating to Axel's side. The truth was undeniable, though it stung just the same. I watched them together, my heart constricting inside my chest. From day one, I understood that Juniper and I had no future. Even if she developed feelings for me, my position as her TA created an insurmountable barrier. As the designated future beta of our werewolf community, I couldn't risk such a scandal, so I buried my emotions deep. My brothers faced no such restrictions. They could freely pursue Juniper without the constraints that bound me. Despite the ache it caused, I recognized this arrangement was best. It allowed me to remain her protector, like a vigilant older brother, rather than a potential lover. I pulled the door closed quietly, leaving Axel and Juniper to recover. They both desperately needed rest, and I had responsibilities demanding my attention elsewhere. In the adjacent room, Nathan and Asher sat in uncharacteristic silence. The atmosphere felt heavy, unusual for my typically argumentative or jovial brothers. Axel has regained consciousness, I informed them, breaking the tension. He's weak but resting now. Thank God, Nathan exhaled, collapsing onto the couch with relief. Asher's tense posture loosened visibly, but he remained wordless. Since Juniper had taken up her vigil at Axel's bedside, Asher hadn't once checked on our injured brother. I couldn't determine if he was avoiding Juniper specifically or both of them together. I wondered if his heightened senses had detected Axel's scent lingering on her as I had. Had he realized their connection went deeper than just the blood staining her clothes? I watched Juniper's expression, ravaged by worry over Axel's wounds. The devastation on her face told the whole story without words. A selfish thought crept into my mind. Would she show the same level of concern if I were the one lying injured? I dismissed the idea immediately. It served no purpose to dwell on it. Taking a seat on the opposite end of the couch from Nathan, I delivered the news. Father contacted me. He's demanding support from the neighboring Pax Alpha, a contingent of warriors to help with our investigation. He wants Asher and me to take point. Nathan bolted upright, his face contorted with indignation. Hold on, I'm being sidelined? Why? Your combat training falls short of ours, and someone needs to monitor Axel during his recovery, I stated flatly. The latter was a fabrication. Our father barely acknowledged Axel's existence, let alone his condition. He'd written him off years ago. He had no use for him. I was next in line for beta. Asher stood right behind me, and Nathan shined as the wolfball champion. Father had collected every type of son he required. We both know that's garbage, Nathan snapped, slumping back with folded arms. He just doesn't want his star athlete damaged. The injustice is glaring. Without the proper training, I can't allow you to join, I stated firmly. I refused to see another brother wounded. Asher had completed warrior training in his youth. Both he and Axel were required to participate, but Axel frequently skipped sessions, claiming leadership wasn't in his future, so training was pointless. Fine, I understand. Still doesn't make me happy. Nathan folded his arms across his chest with a scowl. The gesture made it difficult to view him as anything but juvenile. When are we departing? Asher inquired. Warriors arrive tomorrow morning. Notify your professors you'll be absent on official business for at least 24 hours, possibly longer. They'll excuse you and permit makeup assignments, I explained. Asher rose to his feet. Sure, heaven forbid the star student gets a poor mark. The bitter sarcasm in his tone echoed Axel's typical manner. Asher occasionally challenged me, but this was different. Juniper's rejection had fractured something essential within him, damage possibly irreparable, especially if he discovered her relationship with Axel. This could be hazardous. If your focus is compromised, perhaps you should remain here, I suggested. Despite our father's specific request for Asher's participation, a distracted mind would be dangerous. The werewolf hunter investigation held unknown threats, and I refused to endanger my brother if he wasn't mentally prepared. I'll be there, Asher stated with determination. He moved toward the door. Just give me the details, and I'll make sure I'm prepared. After Asher's departure, I released a heavy sigh. My gut told me to keep him away from this, but I suspected that opportunity had already passed. I could take his place if you're concerned, Nathan offered. I immediately dismissed the idea. That would be even more problematic. Well, thanks for that, Nathan grumbled, rising to his feet. Nathan, I called out, but he disregarded me. I understand. Whatever father demands he receives, correct? Correct, I replied quietly, though I didn't truly believe it. This had been our reality for years, but I was actively working to disrupt the pattern. Father never wanted Juniper involved in our affairs, yet here she was, becoming more deeply connected with all of us daily. Regardless of Father's actions, he would never succeed in separating us from Juniper without destroying the family completely. She had become integral to our lives, and none of us had any intention of letting her go. Juniper, is it necessary for you to leave? I questioned as Ethan prepared for his journey. I already knew he had to go, but I felt anxious about him returning to the location where Axel had been injured. Yes, but there's no need for concern. We have specialized warriors trained precisely for these circumstances. Ethan secured his bag, his departure now imminent. Have you encountered werewolf hunters before? Yes, it was part of my combat training. Ethan paused to examine my expression. There's really nothing to worry about. I'm fully aware of what I'm facing. I nodded, recognizing the reality that Ethan's path to becoming Beta required preparation for precisely these dangerous scenarios. Alpha Williams and Beta Burrell shouldered the responsibility of defending werewolves from external threats, particularly hunters. Typically, individual packs managed hunters within their territories unless the threat exceeded their capabilities. CUW stood as an exception, deliberately unaffiliated with any specific pack to keep educational objectives free from pack politics. This neutral status placed student protection under higher jurisdiction. Just return without bullet holes in you, please. Ethan's expression softened into a genuine smile that transformed him from the authoritative TA I'd grown accustomed to. That's certainly the objective. Juniper, I intended to discuss this with you yesterday, but circumstances prevented it. I've secured university approval for your dorm transfer. You'll have private accommodations without unwanted disturbances. The room is available immediately, though you're equally welcome to remain here with Axel as long as needed. You arranged that for me? I asked, surprised. After my failed attempts to navigate the housing department's bureaucracy, I'd abandoned hope of changing my situation. I never imagined Ethan had initiated such a request on my behalf. I submitted the request immediately following your bullying report. Unfortunately, administrative procedures delayed the process longer than I would have preferred. I apologize for the wait. I pulled Ethan into a hug, my gratitude overwhelming. That was incredible. Thank you so much. His body stiffened momentarily before easing into the embrace. No problem at all. Your paperwork's waiting on the table whenever you're ready. A sudden knock disrupted us. I jumped back from Ethan, feeling strangely guilty, like we'd been caught in some forbidden act. Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly before opening the door. Asher entered, his eyes briefly meeting mine before deliberately shifting to his brother. Ready to go? Yeah, let's move. Ethan slung his bag over his shoulder and headed toward the exit. We'll return as soon as possible, Juniper. If anything happens, contact me, though Nathan's probably your best emergency option. All right. Be careful out there, I paused, then added, both of you. Asher's head whipped toward me, surprise flashing across his features before his expression softened. He acknowledged me with a quick nod before following Ethan out the door. You need to be resting, I insisted, snatching the box from Axel's grasp. Your recovery isn't complete. Axel reached for the container, but I pivoted away. His movements remained sluggish, and though he tried to conceal it, pain flashed across his face whenever he shifted awkwardly. I'm healed enough, he countered stubbornly. I had attempted to convince him to remain in bed during my dorm relocation, but he wouldn't listen. Merely 48 hours had passed since the bullet tore through him, and despite his werewolf healing advantages, that wasn't sufficient time for complete recovery. The external wound had crusted over, but according to the doctor, his internal injuries required more time. The discomfort evident in Axel's expressions confirmed this medical assessment. You absolutely have not. I shouldn't have allowed you to accompany me at all. And I certainly won't permit you to carry anything. I tossed additional items into the box. Multiple trips would be necessary to transport all my belongings, but I didn't mind. My priority was removing my possessions from Moira's vicinity as quickly as possible. I couldn't let you come alone in case Moira decided to give you trouble. He had expressed this concern before, and while I valued his protectiveness, it didn't alleviate my worry about his condition. I checked my phone compulsively, hoping for a message from either Ethan or Asher. Since they'd departed yesterday on their official investigation, worry had become my constant companion. First, Axel getting shot, now this radio silence from the others. They weren't required to update me, possibly weren't even permitted to, but that didn't stop the anxiety gnawing at me. Keeping busy seemed the only antidote to my spiraling thoughts. Moving my belongings offered the perfect distraction, even though I had every intention of staying at Axel's place until his wound fully healed. "Okay, let's go," I announced, balancing a box that teetered on the edge of either collapsing or becoming too heavy for me to lift. Axel's eyes scanned the room. "At least let me carry something light," he pleaded, his face still pale from his recent injury. "I'm not going to change my mind." I placed the box on my bed, then moved to cup his face gently. My lips brushed his with deliberate softness, afraid that any pressure might aggravate his wound. "I'm not going to break," Axel murmured against my mouth. His fingers threaded through my hair, tilting my head back to deepen the kiss. As he leaned forward, a sharp hiss escaped him. I immediately pulled away, creating space between us, despite how much I craved his touch. The thought of causing him additional pain was unbearable. "You're hurt," I stated firmly, the simple fact overriding everything else. "I'm fine." Axel attempted to lean closer, but winced as pain shot through his chest. "Actually, we should finish up quickly. Wouldn't want Moira walking in on us." I sighed, lifting my box again. "Right, sure." His stubborn refusal to acknowledge his discomfort only heightened my worry. How could I assess the severity of his gunshot wound when he kept insisting he was okay? "Let's go." We made multiple trips transporting my belongings to the new accommodation. Ethan had secured me a single room in the upperclassmen's building. The cost exceeded what I'd been paying for the shared space with Moira, but according to Ethan's note, the school would cover the difference as compensation for their failure to address the bullying situation. I had my doubts about this arrangement. It seemed suspiciously generous, but my desperation to escape Moira outweighed my skepticism. Since I couldn't afford the full amount anyway, I chose to accept Ethan's explanation at face value despite my lingering unease. Unlike the suite Moira and I had shared, this new place consisted of one large room with a bed, tucked in one corner, and a compact kitchen area in another. The pre-furnished condition eliminated the need to move any large items, significantly simplifying our task. "This should be the last trip," I said, maintaining a deliberately slow pace as we headed back toward my old room. Axel matched my speed without complaint, though I could see the cost of his effort in the sweat beading across his forehead despite the cool air. "Good. Then we can have a nice, relaxing evening by ourselves." His voice betrayed the strain he was trying to hide. I studied his face, noticing the tightness around his eyes. "Why don't you go back to Ethan's apartment? I can meet you there when I'm done. It won't take long." The bullet wound was clearly still giving him significant pain, regardless of how much he downplayed it. "I can push through a little more. Or you can relax. I will be fine, but I'm not sure you will be." I stopped walking and faced him directly. For someone as physically fit as Axel to struggle this visibly meant he was far from ready for this kind of exertion. Axel's eyes drifted over my head, focusing on something in the distance. His jaw tightened and shifted sideways as he wrestled with the decision. The internal conflict played across his features in a silent battle between pride and practicality. "Go, rest. I'll be faster without you. I may even make it back to the apartment at the same time as you." I pressed when his silence stretched too long. His heavy exhale through his nose signaled reluctant surrender. "Okay, don't take too long. I won't." I carefully wrapped one arm around his uninjured side for a gentle half-hug, mindful not to apply any pressure. "Message me when you get back to the apartment or if you need anything. I'll drop what I'm doing." Axel pressed his lips against my head, breathing in deeply, as if memorizing my scent before releasing me from his embrace. As we separated, I rushed toward my former room, already feeling a strange emptiness without Axel beside me. This marked our first real separation since our time at the lake, and the sensation was oddly disorienting. Though our connection existed before my breakup with Asher, It had intensified dramatically after our night together. The absence I felt with Axel was completely different from what I'd experienced with Asher. With Asher, I merely missed his company. With Axel, the separation manifested as a physical ache, a persistent, dull throb that accompanied each step I took away from him. This intensity both confused and frightened me. I never imagined becoming someone who needed constant proximity to her partner, though Axel wasn't officially my boyfriend yet. We hadn't defined our relationship. Recent events had unfolded too rapidly, and despite wanting Axel close, labeling him as my boyfriend felt inappropriate when my breakup with Asher still seemed unresolved. My thoughts scattered as I arrived at my former dorm room. The door stood wide open, with familiar voices echoing from inside. I recognized them immediately and hesitated at the threshold. After a moment's pause, I accepted the inevitable encounter and stepped inside. "Juniper, darling," came the immediate greeting. "Luna Miller, Alpha Miller," I responded, forcing my best smile as I faced Moira's parents. Luna Miller strode across the room, her long legs carrying her with grace as she enveloped me in an embrace warmer than any she'd given before. Though Moira had inherited her mother's blonde hair and deep brown eyes, Luna possessed a natural radiance that commanded attention in any space she occupied. "We were just wondering where you disappeared to," Luna said, releasing me. "Moira told us you were buried in your books again. No surprise you're heading for valedictorian. Such brilliance." She reached toward my face. If only some of that would transfer to our Moira. Her manicured nail narrowly missed my skin as she playfully tapped at my nose. I shifted my gaze to the corner where Moira stood. Gone was the confident cheerleader who tormented me daily. This Moira shrank into herself, eyes wide with unmistakable terror, silently pleading with me to keep her secret. The realization hit me instantly. Her parents had no idea about our situation. Judging by Moira's expression, they wouldn't take her side if they knew. I had the power to end my torment with a few simple words about their daughter's behavior toward me. Moira's face drained of color as she read my thoughts. She understood that I held all the cards now. "Let's go get lunch," Moira interjected desperately, trying to divert her parents' attention. "If we leave now, we can beat the crowds." Luna turned to me, her smile genuine and warm. "Juniper, darling, would you like to join us for lunch?" "She can't," Moira snapped, voice rising sharply. "She has a major test to prepare for." Her eyes locked onto mine with unmistakable warning, a silent threat that retaliation would follow if I accepted their invitation. "If you only applied yourself to studying," Alpha Miller said with dismissive contempt, shaking his head, "perhaps then your academic performance might approach Juniper's level. We wouldn't have to feel embarrassed when discussing our daughter's grades." Moira visibly deflated at her father's cutting remark. "I lead the cheerleading squad. We've been national champions every year since I took charge." "That frivolous activity won't secure your future," Luna Miller interjected coldly. "Look at Juniper. She doesn't waste time on meaningless sports for recognition. As valedictorian, her path is clear. Cheerleaders just serve as decorative accessories for men. Don't you aspire to actually contribute something valuable to your future pack?" Moira hugged herself defensively, trying to physically shrink from their criticism. "Cheerleading requires significant dedication. It's not just what you think." Her voice lacked its usual confidence, sounding hollow and uncertain. Observing my former friend turned tormentor, 3 realizations crystallized in my mind. First, I could easily destroy her now, exacting revenge for all her cruelty. Second, I refused to descend to her tactics. Third, her parents' behavior explained exactly why she had grown to hate me. The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. All this time, Luna and Alpha Miller never truly cared for me as their own. I was merely a trophy they paraded around, the orphan girl who excelled under their wing. I basked in their constant approval, completely blind to how each compliment drove a deeper wedge between Moira and myself. Every achievement of mine became another failure of hers in their eyes. The pieces suddenly aligned perfectly. Her resentment wasn't random cruelty, but the natural response of a daughter starved for parental recognition. How could I have missed something so fundamental about our dynamic for so long?